Firstly, will you tell us how Callum Wilson is doing? He came off at half-time in Dortmund and you cited a tight hamstring as the reason.
Yeah, that's what he had, a tight hamstring. We're doing various tests. He's been called up for England, so we're waiting to see if he'd be fit for this game and then make a decision after.
And any other fresh problems from the other night that you've been able to look at?
Trying to rack my brain, Razor. No, I don't think any fresh problems.
How much are the injuries hurting you at the moment? It does give other players a chance to play and show what they can do, but I mean, you've got so many unavailable.
Yeah, injuries, suspensions combined. I think the big thing is I back the players, back our squad, but I think that probably the biggest challenge is in-game running. Probably my options are restricted. I think that's probably the biggest effect on our situation at the moment.
We saw towards the very end in Dortmund, Will Smiley come on, and at 17 years of age, he's become the youngest player to feature for Newcastle in Europe. I know he's just back from illness, but you rate him so highly. Is there a chance he could have a more prominent role over the next few weeks and months, given the way your squad is stretched? Yeah,
I think he's certainly going to have a prominent role in on our future. Generally, I think you can see at Dortmund, like the way he came into the game for someone so young was hugely impressive, because at that moment we were obviously trying to chase the game, but chase the game intelligently. I thought he did that really well. I thought he used the ball well, and physically looked really good after his illness, so I was really pleased with him.
This is the final Premier League match in this block of fixtures before the next set of internationals. Compared to where you were going into the October internationals, how do you feel you're positioned in the table now after the last few league results?
Yeah, well, I think the players have done incredibly well to adjust to a difficult start, which we knew it was going to be potentially a difficult start for us with the fixtures. We were close in those games, but we didn't get the results we wanted. So I think it was a real test of character responding to the first break and again in the second, because this has been another really intense period. The players have been stretched mentally, physically, but I have to compliment them, and our general performances I think have been very strong. Of course, we lost the 2 games to Dortmund, but I don't think they were hugely one-sided games. I thought we were in both. Could have been very different. So after a big compliment to what they've given, and now we need to finish off this run of games against Bournemouth.
Last couple of things on Bournemouth. Change of manager in the summer, and they obviously don't have as many points as they would like at this stage. What do you make of the way things have changed there this season and how they've been performing?
Well, I think Andoni is a very good manager. Watched Bournemouth a lot in the build-up to this game. I think their setup's very good. They've got good players. They invested a lot of money in the summer in their squad. So I think we know we're going to be in for a tough game, and I've got a lot of experience at that stadium, and the Vitality is a very difficult place to go. So I think for us, we need to make sure we've recovered from Dortmund physically, mentally, and go again and make sure we're ready for a tough game.
And you made your first return to Bournemouth as a manager with Newcastle last season. So do you feel that it changes things, maybe takes some of the pressure and focus off you this time because you've already been back?
Well, I hope so. I hope the focus is always on the players and on our performance and how well we can approach the game. That's always my wish. It's never about me. Our only focus is to try and win.
Thanks, Reza. Keith, anything from what you said there on Callum? Is it a decision will be made today? Are you going to see them in training? Is that?
Yeah, I'm going to see how he arrives this morning.
Any concerns that he's been called up for England, given the hamstring issue that saw him withdrawn at the weekend, midweek? Sorry.
No, I don't think so. I think Gareth and England and ourselves will be in constant communication anyway, as we are with all our international players, to make sure their welfare is thought about at all times.
How's Isak? I think the cameras caught him out just maybe doing some running by himself last week. Is he getting a little bit closer?
Yeah, no, Alex is doing well. He's in the throes of sort of building up his load and making sure he's robust enough to return, working on his fitness levels. I think his groin at the moment, touch wood, feels good. He's on plan to return after the international break.
Okay, and Sven Botman, any update on him?
No massive news regarding Sven. He's progressing well. He's been away in Holland getting specialist treatment there. I think he's back here today, so I'll have a chat with him and see how he's getting on.
10 missing tomorrow when you include injured players and suspended players. Have you ever had a situation like this as a manager where you're missing so many?
No, not to this level, but I think it's a difficult one. I don't want to build it up to be any more than it is. I want to focus on the game, the players we have that are fit. I still believe are good enough if we're at our best levels, and I think that's the one thing to take from Dortmund will be that I think if we'd have played to our very maximum levels, we could have won that game, but we didn't. So we have to take control of that ourselves and not look for external reasons as to why we didn't.
Yeah, on from that, I mean, it says everything about your squad and what you're doing here, that in a week where you're missing so many players, you beat Manchester United, you beat Arsenal, and you run Dortmund close in 6 days. Yeah,
and I think that I can't credit the players that we do have that are fit and available, and how well they've attacked the games. You know, you go back to Arsenal, and I think the only disappointment for me with the Arsenal game was that sort of the VAR incident overshadowed our performance, because I thought our performance, when you take into consideration the whole position that we're in, was absolutely outstanding. The players were magnificent in their commitment and their desire to win, and our general performance was so strong. So that's what we need to focus on and try and get right tomorrow.
Wonder what you made this week on news that the Premier League clubs are set to vote on a temporary ban to loan deals between clubs who are owned by the same people. What is your view on that, given the fact that Newcastle are owned by the PIF, and of course they own 4 clubs in the Saudi Pro League as well?
Well, we've been watching events as everyone else has, and we'll wait and see what the result of that vote is. I think it's very difficult for me to comment sort of from our perspective. I think I'll let you make assessments on what's happening.
Okay, thanks, Eddie.
Andy? Morning, Eddie. After 2 years here at Newcastle, I think it was, Wednesday, that the 2-year anniversary went through. How would you kind of describe the club and the city as you sit here now compared to where it was 2 years ago?
Well, I think we're in a better place. It's been an incredible 2 years. I mean, I think when you get an anniversary, I don't know what you're like in your life with anniversaries and every... But you sort of get a realisation of how quick time goes, and I think that's when people said it's 2 years. It's like, wow, it's just gone by in a flash. But then you look back at some of the memories within that 2 years, and it's been an amazing period of time in my life, hopefully in everyone's life connected with Newcastle. I think it's been a brilliant 2 years, and I can't thank the board of directors, the owners, the players, the supporters for everything that they've given to help the team perform, and I hope it's the start of more years and more success, but obviously we'll wait and see.
I was going to say, how do you think the club and the city as well have kind of impacted you, not just as a manager, but as a person too?
Well, I have to say that the people that I've met, and I haven't met a huge amount because I tend to keep myself quite withdrawn, have been so friendly and welcoming, and they've really embraced me and my family, and I feel very much part of the area, part of the community, and I can't thank everyone enough for that. I think I probably have changed in many ways, but I think sometimes when it's you, it's difficult to sort of comment on what they are. I'd probably leave that to other people close to me. I'm still absolutely football obsessed, very driven, and really enjoying the experience.
Just on a completely different note, a sobering note, I suppose, you mentioned the Arsenal game and the aftermath from the weekend, and there was the talk of the racist abuse that had come out against Bruno and Joe Willock. Have you managed to speak to the pair of them this week, and most importantly, how are they after that incident?
Yeah, I think with anything like that, I think the players were a bit shaken and shocked initially. It goes without saying from my perspective and everyone on behalf of Newcastle, there's no place in football for racism of any kind. And both players, I think, have dealt with it really well. They've been very mature about the situation, and I think they're both okay.
You mentioned before, obviously, talking about injuries. I'm sick of hearing that word, but just one of the players, Harvey Barnes, how is he getting on? Is he still on schedule? Is he ahead of schedule even? Or?
Yeah, I think he's still on schedule. I think he's just started running. I think he had to let his bone heal in his toe. So yeah, fingers crossed he's on the right path, and he'd probably be one that wouldn't be too far away after the international break. Certainly wouldn't be ready, when we return, but hopefully wouldn't be too far away.
Just a final one from me, just on Bournemouth. When you do look at the results, do you still kind of look for theirs among the top ones that you look for? And do you still feel a link to the club, bearing in mind everything that you went through with Bournemouth as well?
I think I'll always have a link to the club. I don't think you can lose that, and especially when my family's been heavily involved in the football club as well, through my brother or nephew, etc. So there's always been links there. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I do look at result. I look at all football results, but I'll always care about the football club and wish it good times, good moments. But obviously, of course, when you're playing against them, we'll do everything in our power to try and win.
Thanks, Ed.
Lee Johnson.
I did. You mentioned VAR there overshadowing the performance against Arsenal. It seems every game we've had in the past couple of weeks, there seems to be huge talking points after it. Where do you stand on VAR? Is it taking too much attention away from the actual football? And is it time to have a look at its use, really, and whether it needs to continue in its current form?
That's a big subject. I think VAR, in my opinion, won't be going anywhere. I think once the technology's in, I think it's about trying to get the technology to work in the best way, whatever that is. I was reluctant to VAR initially to come in. I was more of in favour of letting the referee have the power over decisions. One of my big things was when a player scores and has that instant high of scoring a goal and celebrating that, you risk that getting taken away, and that sat uncomfortably with me. But I think there's been real benefits for VAR. I think that there are aspects of it that do work. But my big thing will be when the game ends, it should be about the players. It should be about the football. It should be about what we've seen. It shouldn't be, the main focus should not be the referees, VAR. I think that's very dangerous. As I say, we beat Arsenal and play very well. I don't think there was any talk or reaction about how well the team played or individuals within the team and how well they excelled. It was all about one refereeing decision, which I think is sad.
Cheers.
Okay. Chris.
Eddie, hello. The Newcastle United Supporters Trust put a statement out yesterday saying they're deeply disappointed that the allocation for the PSG away game has been cut by PSG to below the sort of 5% UEFA level. I think the club raised concerns with UEFA in September. I mean, how disappointed are you that you'll not be brought on by as many supporters as possible?
Is that the case? First I've heard.
We've been allocated 2,000 tickets, I believe, which is
right
below the 5% UEFA regulations, and that is the same as other clubs in the Champions League this season at Parc des Princes.
Right, okay. Well, yeah, and obviously, sorry, it's the first I've heard about it. An obvious disappointment for me that we're not going to have as many supporters as we can. I have to compliment everyone that went to Dortmund. The support we had there was incredible. And I'm just sorry we couldn't get them the result that everyone wanted.
Lee Ryder?
I think there's been reports in Holland about Marcel Bout coming in as sort of transfer chief or head of scouting. Can you shed any light on that? Or
Yeah, well, that'd be something that I'm not directly involved in. That'll be a club appointment made internally. So I don't think it'll necessarily be impacting sort of first team recruitment. I think it's more on the younger side. But certainly, a welcome addition to the football club.
yeah. And how important is it for you to have a good say on your transfers? Because obviously you're the guy picking the team and you know what it needs.
Yeah, certainly when you come to first team recruitment and the players are going to come straight into my squad, I feel a necessity that me and my coaching team are across every transfer, because I think you have to have that love for the player, want for the player, need for the player in order for it to be successful. I'm a believer that the coach, manager, needs that control to a degree over the signings that come in.
Just on Bournemouth, last season it was a tough game down there. I think you got a draw. Going into this one, is that the sort of result you're looking for again, or do you really need to sign off on a high to keep in touch with the top four?
Yeah, we desperately want to win. That's our motivation and our aim for every game. But if you can't win, the next best thing is not to lose. And I think when you go back to that game last year, if I remember rightly, I think we were stretched with injuries going into that one, and we were a little bit disjointed in our performance. But we battled to a really important point in the end. And it's funny when you look at the end of the season how important that point potentially was, and other points that maybe at the time you're a little bit disappointed that you didn't get more from the game. Sometimes that can be hugely valuable.
Craig?
Eddie, you spoke there earlier about the incoming Premier League rules with regards to loans. It looks like there's going to be another rule brought in as well, which affects related party sponsors. Is it the timing of this which sort of raises eyebrows internally, because both of these changes would affect Newcastle more than any other club?
Again, Craig, I think it's a difficult one for me to give you chapter and verse on it, because there's not a situation that I'm in any control over. I'm reacting like you are to sort of what's happening, and I think it's probably better that you draw conclusions to that, not me.
Yeah. Is there I'm going to ask the same question in a different way.
I'll probably give you the same answer in a different way.
But is it, since all of these changes have all come about since the club's takeover, you know, it's an obvious statement to make, but rivals are worried about you guys?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the motives behind the rule changes coming in. Again, that's very difficult for me to give a definitive opinion on. We just have to react to the rules as they come in, and that's what we continue to do.
Scott.
I did my best.
So did that.
Minter at Feyenoord, is there a callback option there in January? And given that he's someone who's scored goals in the Eredivisie this season, and obviously you haven't got a lot of cover options in attack, would that be something that you would seriously think about in January?
We'd look at all our players that are out on loan with a view to, if we feel that they can strengthen us and it's good for their careers as well, we'll look at what we can do. He's certainly done very well. He's injured at the moment, which is a disappointment, and we need to check. I know he's come back, I think, for an assessment on that injury to check how serious that injury is and when he'll be back. But we'll make a decision on all our loan players.
Has he kind of, prior to the injury, obviously, he has scored goals for them, he has been in and out of their team. Has he developed as you would have hoped that he had?
I think his loan spell's been a productive one. He's scored goals, he's been part of a successful team. He's certainly got talent. The Premier League is a very different league to any other league in Europe, but that doesn't mean that players can't come in and out of into the Premier League. But he's someone that we like, and he's certainly got the athletic profile that we need.
George?
Hi.
Just to ask Craig's question for the ninth then. Does this kind of thing feed that sense within the club internally about not being done any favours and having to do stuff?
I think there's we've tried to use loads of different motivations in our time here to motivate the players. I don't know if that's a motivating one for them, really. It might be more for owners and directors and managers rather than the players. I think when the player enters the pitch, he's not thinking about rules of the Premier League, he's thinking about the game, and if there's anything that we can do to give them an edge, we will try and find that, but I don't think this is one.
And one of the kind of great stories of the past 2 years has been how the players you inherited have kind of risen with the team. Can I ask you to kind of pay tribute to them, not just the ones who've been mainstays in the team, but those players who in recent weeks have been used and been important too?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone that's been part of the squad that's over the 2 years has been part of an amazing time, really, an amazing team of progress, and I think they'd have seen individual players do well, but I think the main thing is the collective has done well, and everyone's benefited from that. Even players that maybe haven't played as much football as they'd have liked, they would have benefited in their careers from watching the team evolve. We value everybody, playing or not. It makes no difference to me if they're the right character and the right attitude, and they're thinking of the team and helping the team in any way. They will have a part to play in our future, and there's too many players to mention individually, but everyone's played an important role in our success.
Luke?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Congratulations on your 2 years.
I think we're up, aren't we?
No, not quite. I just wanted to congratulate you on never managing to give an accurate injury update before the game or any news of your team sheet in the 2 years.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Craig's question again, and a slightly different angle. Amanda Staveley said the Premier League don't like competition, and you've gone on the record before saying people don't want to make anything easy for Newcastle since the takeover. Is that still the case? I
don't know where to go with that one, Luke, because that's quite a complex answer.
You've ruffled feathers. I mean, you said you yourself said we're here to compete, and you have ruffled feathers.
Yeah, we're here to compete on the pitch, and all these things that we're discussing now are off the pitch, and that's where it becomes very difficult for me to give you honest, clear, concise answers. I can't do that because I'm not party of those talks. I'm not involved in those talks. I'm just looking at the media and seeing things like you are, and so that's why I've got to be very careful. I've got to draw a line between what I'm a part of and what I'm not, and I'm not part of that world. I'm part of the football world, and yes, we want to compete on the pitch, and we'll play within the rules to try and do that.
And you will just do the best you can with whatever resources you have. It's exactly the same when you're at Bournemouth, it's exactly the same when you're at Newcastle.
Yeah, there's absolutely no change, and within the rules that the Premier League set, and we have to respect those rules, whatever they are. But like I said to Craig, I think I'll let everyone else make assessments on why those rules are coming in. That's not for me to comment on.
Thank you.
Martin and then Simon.
To pick up the baton of Craig.
Let's keep going.
Strong effort today.
To slightly move it on, those rule changes, do they alter your plans for January?
I, honestly, at the moment, I don't have any plans for January because it's such a moving thing in a sense of we don't have like clearly identified targets. There's too many moving parts at this stage, and that there's a lot of football to be played. There's, from our side, injuries that may return, injuries that may not return. So it's very difficult for us to have finalised those plans at this moment in time. So a long-winded answer, but no.
Right. Dan Ashworth had mentioned Ruben Levis. Was that a player that you admired?
Yeah, very difficult to talk about one individual player. Yeah, of course he's a player that we liked when he was at Wolves. Yeah, that's it.
And in light of the Champions League, the way it's gone, were you happy with what you bought in the summer, or is there a possibility that maybe a little bit more experience for that level might have been useful?
Again, that's a very difficult one. With hindsight, everything looks very different. With the injuries that we have, our squad looks different, the dynamic of the squad looks different, but we have to look at the squad dynamic as it was in the summer when we made those decisions, and I still think they're the right calls.
Simon?
And just to take the baton on the fourth leg and bring it over the line, you said you'd be reacting to those rules. Can we assume you're fighting them and you're opposing them as a club? If you can speak for the owners at this point.
That's not something we can't speak for other people, Simon.
I mean, we're assuming you are fighting them against them.
You can make that assumption yourself.
Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I'll drop the baton on. Just you're about Bruno this weekend. How do you go about replacing a player of his quality?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can replace Bruno with another Bruno. He's very unique. He's got unique qualities. I think he's done very well this season. So we will replace him with someone else with different qualities, but still can be a very effective player for us. I believe we can cope with his absence, but it will be hard because he's such a big player for us.
Yeah, how do you cope without him? Because I think you mentioned Sandro as a potential number 6 option. Obviously, you don't have him now. If he is to be out for, say, for example, a longer period, how do you cope without Bruno in that position?
Yeah, not easy, as I said, but I can't give you how we're gonna. Can't give you the answer, so you'll have to wait and see, and then we'll talk about it after.
Louise Taylor.
Hi Eddie. On your sabbatical after leaving Bournemouth, you went out to Rayo Vallecano, and you obviously watched Androni work. Was it a road to Damascus moment, or part of your evolution? Because he was obviously in Spain, had this very successful pressing style. So, was it a big watershed?
No, I think whenever you go and watch someone work, I don't think there's a big watershed moment, because I think you have your idea and your philosophy yourself, and I had a very clear vision of how I wanted my team to play when I first went into management. Now that's evolved and changed, but the core principles have never changed, which I think's very important actually. I think you need to have your ideals and then continue to add layers to it, and that's what we've tried to do. The trip there was very good. Andoni is not just a very good coach, but he's a very good person and man. I like him a lot as a person. Not that I have any interactions with him at all now, because, as I said many times, I don't court sort of friendship from other Premier League managers, but he's someone that I respect. Did an incredible job at Vallecano, and I'm sure he'll do the same at Bournemouth, given time.
Did he consult you before taking the Bournemouth job?
No. We had no conversations.
And final question, there's all this speculation about Ruben Levis, but the interesting thing about him is that he's a wonderful player, and he was great for Wolves, but perhaps he didn't go to a top club because he's actually doesn't seem very keen on pressing. With this kind of layer system, could you incorporate a player like that into this current team?
That's very detailed. I'm reluctant to go into that much detail about an individual player who's not mine. But I do believe just generally players can adapt to different styles. I've got no doubt about that.
Thanks, Louise. Dominic and then Kieran.
You spoke about not having Bruno this weekend earlier. Joe Willock seems the obvious choice to come into this side, and without giving your team away, just what have you made of his recent performances since coming back from injury?
Yeah, very good. I think Joe's done excellently to have the same characteristics as he had before his injury, which is big running stats, big athletic load, speed, quality on the ball. I think he's had all of those in his sort of small cameos that he's had, and I think he had, 75 minutes the other night, and that would have done him the world of good as well.
Matt Target, you spoke about on Monday, has had surgery since then. How's he doing, and is that 3-month estimate you gave still accurate?
Yeah, I think roughly. It's difficult to tell. We'll be able to give you more updates as he goes on in his rehab, but roughly around 3 months. It's a long-term injury. He's okay. He's a little bit sore after surgery, but he definitely needed it done.
Is there any further update on Jacob Murphy and potential surgery there?
Yeah, he's had surgery, non-invasive. I think it was keyhole surgery on his shoulder, but hopefully we fixed the problem. Time-wise on that, I think it's probably 8-9 weeks.
Kieran?
Eddie, did Mikel Arteta's comments take credit away from your team?
I just think the whole storm around the goal took all the noise really, and I think that, as I said, that was a shame because I don't think the players got possibly the credit they deserve for the performance, and I think that's a dangerous thing because I think then you look the next night and then it was the same for the Chelsea Tottenham game, and I just don't think it should be about referees. I think it should always be about the players.
And finally, would you be open to signing players from Saudi? Is that something you've ever considered?
I'm open to signing players from anywhere if they're good enough and they make our team better.